Yes. Yes. So you are able to see the screen, right?
Yes, sir.
So last class, I think last week, okay. So we have already started our beams discussion, okay. So I have shown you, all the important things in the beams, like, there are some guidelines are there, depending on the spans, you can select what type of section you want also, okay. So then finally the shape factor, plastic section modulus, elastic section modulus, all of them become the design variables, okay. So because beams, the section modulus becomes, and since it is a limit state design we are doing say, so the plastic modulus also becomes very important. And then we introduced the shape factor, the depth of the, I think the length of the hinge, and all other things we have seen in our last class, okay. So then finally, so we have started like then the how to design the beam. So this section classification becomes very important, because your what formula in the design to carry the bending capacity say, so the formula depends on your type of the cross section. So if it is a plastic beam say, you should use it ZP semi-compact, say ME. So this is the most important thing which you should do while designing the beams, okay. So then we have started these modes of failure. So there are basically, of course, many are there, three broad classifications we can do. So one is excessive bending, that is a classical thing, the bending moment is the most important thing. Then lateral torsional buckling, then the local failures, okay. So this I already showed you. So now when the bending capacity is in the first mode of failure, so there itself you are having two cases. So generally shear doesn't influence the the bending when it is a very low, but after some point of time, so the bending capacity of the beam reduces, since the shear force increases. So here the guideline is from this Fy by root 3, these formulas say. So this 0.6 comes into picture. So what you do is you compute the, let us say the design shear force, the shear force which is coming on the beam if it is V, okay. And then you also calculate the shear capacity of your beam. So if I denote this by Vd, okay, so this is the capacity of this beam. So if the beam has to be safe, say, so obviously Vd should be more than the V that is applied, the shear force. So this applied shear force, if it is less than Vd, that means your beam is safe. Otherwise, it is the problem. Now here also, when V is less than Vd is our design criteria. But here what we do is we split it into two pieces. One is V less than 0.6 times Vd, whereas V greater than 0.6 times this Vd. So two criteria are there. Of course, this has to be satisfied. You followed, right? So this is, so now when V is less than 0.6 times the design this one, so that is in this region, okay. So your bending capacity doesn't get influenced by shear, so it is going to remain constant. But if the applied shear force, if it is greater than 0.6 times Vd and less than, of course, Vd, otherwise the beam will fail. So your bending design capacity, say, it decreases, okay. So this is the most the important. So suppose if it is a 0.7 times Vp, say, so your bending capacity decreases. So this we call as low shear, and then high shear. So 0.6 comes from that root 3, this business. So this is the first thing you have to do, whether your beam is in high shear or low shear. For that you have to find out the design shear capacity, and then the applied shear forces. Say if it is more than 0.6 times Vd, it is a high shear. If it is less than 0.6 times Vd, it is a low shear. So how to compute the web area is already, the formulas are given in the code, so you can use directly these expressions itself, okay. So now when it is less than 0.6 times Vd, the applied shear force, okay. So this is a low shear. So here is a simple expression which comes from your simple bending formula, M by I, that F by I, that formula. So Z into F of Y by gamma M naught partial safety factors and beta B say. So this if it is 1, it depends on the section classification, okay. So if it is this type of section, you should use 1. Other things as ZE by ZP, like that, you see, you have to use this expressions. And of course yield stress and partial safety factors are there. And then we also have a criteria, 1.2 times ZeFy by gamma m naught, 1.5 Ze also. So why these two extra things have been given? No. So why this 1.2, 1.5? Why do we require this one?
Serviceability.
Excellent, serviceability. So if it is these things, what happens, your beam may be, because you are going up to the plastic range, say, so the yield deflection may be more, which is not wanted, that's how. And this 1 point to this is more or less same as similar to your shape factor and other things comes into picture. Okay, now if there are holes in the tension zone, so generally the flanges will be connected, right, to some other things, say. It's not important in beam design, but there are some slight criteria are there. Like, if it is more than something, so then you may have to do, you may have to reduce the tension area, and then you may have to do the calculations. But this doesn't arise in many of the problems. And then shear lag also we have. The shear lag also comes from your simple bending theory. So your simple bending theory says uniform, but in reality it is not uniform. So in the flanges, if I take middle portion, will have high stress, other sides, say the edges will have very low non-uniform kind of thing. So this also we do a criteria, but this also we don't many frequently say we don't encounter these type of things. So code also says that if this thing is not matching, so you may have to do some extra things, or maybe some effective width of the flange or something, you have to do this one. So these are two additional criteria. Now when it is a high shear case, say that is your shear force in the beam, it is less than or equal to 0.6 times VD. Okay, but of course it should be less than VD. Always this should be less than VD only. Otherwise your beam will collapse. If it is a 0.6 times, then we call as a high shear. So here the bending capacity gets reduced actually from this. I showed you this expression. So this you have to reduce your bending capacity. So how much, that is anyway, some empirical formulas are there. So we do these calculations. So this is a reduction factor VU by VD. This is a design shear strength, the applied shear force. You have to find out the ratio, and then MJD say. So this plastic design strength of the area have to, and there are some empirical formulas have been given in the code actual. Okay, so essentially you are reducing the bending strength of the beam. So now if it is semi-compact, what you should do, if it is slender section, what you also, the code clearly gives you all these guidelines. Okay. Now the next one is this lateral torsional buckling, which is a very, very important and a complex thing for beams. Last class I already showed you, the video also, all the things are there. So the basic philosophy is it is not a beam or a column or an arch or any structure which is under compression, it buckles actually. Okay, how it is going to buckle is the issue. But the beam, is a very, very complicated thing, because when it is subjected to bending, the top fibers in compression, bottom fiber will be in tension. The top one buckles, bottom one doesn't buckle. So you have this torsion also, comes into picture. Suppose if it has a uniform compression, then no torsion, it will behave like a column only. But here, the top is compression, bottom tension, say this lateral torsional buckling comes. So, and one most important thing is this warping actually. Okay, so in your undergrad, that is a mechanics and material course, we don't do this warping and others. But here what happens, all our steel tables, say we don't have circular cross sections. The formula which you derived, that torsion formula, circular cross section, it may be valid, but rectangular section, I section, channel sections, so warping becomes very, very the important kind of thing itself. So we will not go into the detailed derivation and others. So your equation of motion also will be different, because when warping comes into picture, say IUW, so extra warping rigidity also has to be added, and then torsional rigidity, say. So this is GIT, then of course the bending will be there. So this LTB depends, I also told you last class. So many conditions. One is a support condition, then type and position. This is the most important figure. Okay. So now which is unstable? No, we already told you it. So now if you can apply the load on the top of the flange or at the shear center, or you can even apply at the bottom. So which is more stable, which is more safe? A, B or C?
C.
C is more stable because your load is like this, your beam resistance is like this. So your beam is trying to buckle in this direction, but this what happens is it applies other direction, so it stabilizes. So this is a stabilized, whereas this is unstable kind of thing. But whereas anyway this is like a neutral kind of thing itself. So this is how the load, the stabilizing, how the things are going to vary. Okay, so and of course I also told it depends on the type of cross section also. As the depth increases, your capacity decreases also. So, and then not only that one, it also depends how the load is varying. Okay, so generally, of course, load means, you know, it may be UDL or whatever. Finally, you will draw a bending on diagram only. Okay, so if the bending on diagram, if it is varying different say, your lateral buckling also, you know, varies with all these numbers. So this also I showed you. So now analytically, so you can derive this lateral torsion. I have sent you one, you know, the YouTube video of mine, that structural stability course. So I have sent you one video, but there are previous videos also are there to understand, because lateral torsional buckling, if you want to understand, you should know lateral buckling, you should know torsional buckling, and then a combination of these two itself. Okay. So, and then warping also, you know, that is also another headache which comes in the LTP, because our cross sections are not circular cross section. Circular cross section means maybe, you know, warping could have been omitted, but I section, you can't help, you know. So you, all these things have to be used, and the derivation is little bit lengthy, all the things. So these are some, you know, the lateral torsional buckling. So from analytical solutions only. Okay. So, but the formula is very easy to remember. See, how do you remember this formula? So you can see what is EI. What is EI? No. See, in mechanics, EI stands for what? Now, EI of a beam means, what does EI tells you? Now, what is EI? Young's modulus multiplied by the moment of inertia. So M is equal to, you know, EI d square y by dx square, like that. You see, we write. Now, what is EI indicates? No.
Modulus of rigidity.
Modulus of flexural rigidity, we say generally. It is bending, so flexural rigidity. What is it? GJ?
Shear rigidity.
Shear rigidity or torsional rigidity also, because J is a polar moment of inertia, you know, shear torsional rigidity. Anyway, torsion is also same as the shear itself. Now, E times this one. Okay, this is also like a moment of inertia only, but it is a warping thing. This we call as a warping rigidity. You followed. So this circular cross sections you can neglect, but I section, you know, it will be significant only. This warping rigidity also will be there. Okay, so 3 rigidities. Now this formula, if you see, it has a very peculiar formula. So your M, say, critical bending moment to cause buckling, it depends on, you know, if you assume warping is very small, say, if you neglect warping, what is this formula? How does it looks like? Now, see here, inside the square root, how this formula looks like. It is a product of what are the two things?
Bending and torsion.
So bending, rigidity, torsion. So if you multiply EI and if you multiply GJ, it is something like, you know, it is proportional to these two. Why bending? Why torsion? This comes from lateral bending. This comes from the torsional, you know, the buckling itself. And of course, warping comes, depends on your shape of the cross section also. So if you know this, if you multiply, you will get the critical bending moment also. And of course, support conditions also matters. So if it's simply supported beams, it is a pi by L. If it is a fixed beam, so 2 pi by L, like that, you know, we can derive analytically all those, you know, the expressions itself. Now that is for bending, pure bending case. Now if you are having a concentrated load, say, so here also you can derive, you know, from the energy principles and whatever, you know, we can derive the closed form. You can see in the videos. I have sent you one video, but lecture 18 and others, you know, you will see the derivation for concentrated loads. But as far as this course is concerned, those derivations are not required. Okay, but just for your information, if you want to know more details, you can just go through that this one. So finally, for concentrated load also, you can see the formula, you know, the derivation turns out to be like this. But the most important thing what you can understand is, whatever may be, say, pure bending or support conditions or whatever, all the formulas, you know, of course some constants will be here, where, and this one, but the formula is nothing but product of flux rigidity multiplied by torsion rigidity. Of course, in this we add, you know, the Saint Venant torsion plus this warping, actually, you know, this itself. So you can see the addition of GJ plus EI multiplied by EI will give me by, you know, the lateral torsional, that is a critical bending moment for a beam. Okay, so it's very easy to remember. So if you delete these constants, if somebody asks you, say, well, your lateral torsional buckling of a beam depends on what, you know, so you can quickly say that it is a product of flexural rigidity multiplied by torsional rigidity, and if there is a warping is there, say, you add torsion plus warping, so multiplication of these two. Okay, so that is how, you know, and of course warping generally, you know, if it is very small, you can neglect, so you can easily remember these type of, you know, the formulas like pi square EI by L square, say. So here EI into GJ or GJ plus E times that warping thing also. Okay, so now here so to find so this lateral torsional buckling, this is the analytical derivation, but in reality, and this here the derivation assumes that there is no eccentricity. Okay, so there is no eccentricity and the beam is perfectly straight, no initial bend, no crookedness, nothing actual. So this derivation is valid. But in reality, what happens, the beams may not be straight, the load may not act at the, symmetric kind of thing. So you will have all kinds of problems. So if you want to derive, you see already initially bent beams, the beam also slightly bent, and then the load is not acting at this one, then, the derivation becomes complex, and, there are other issues are there. So what one does is, lot of experiments have been done. Okay. So a lot of experiments people have done, and of course, so this is a theoretical formula. So this is a dotted line, say. It is like our Euler-Bernoulli, that Euler buckling law, pi square A by L square. So this is a theoretical formula, comes like this. So based on all those things, people have classified. So the thumb rule now is 0.4 is a slenderness ratio. You followed, right? So the slenderness ratio lambda LT, say, okay, non-dimensional slenderness ratio. You remember how did we wrote the slenderness ratio for columns? You remember this slide? No. See, for compression members, see what is the slenderness ratio? You remember here this formula? No. We wrote as Fy by FCC. FCC is nothing but your Euler buckling stress, that pi square EI, that E by KL by R. This one is a Euler buckling stress. So Fy is a yield stress. So similarly here also we can define the non-dimensional kind of thing. So which is MP, that is a plastic capacity of your beam towards MCR, where MCR is your critical bending moment, which is given by this, these type of expressions, like a non-dimensional things. So this is if the slenderness ratio, the thumb rule is if this lambda LT, if it is less than 0.4, so what type of beam it is? See this graph? So here it is My by MP. What type of beam it is? So less than 0.25. So what is happening here? So buckling becomes important or not? So this beam fails in what?
Bending.
It ordinary bending failure. But if it is more than 0.4, say, then you will see this type of inelastic, it is like a mixture of buckling, bending, all kinds of things, and 1.2 or something. So then it goes something like this. So generally our IS code says, not only IS code, Euro code, basically it has been borrowed from there. So if lambda LT, if it is less than 0.4, so no need to worry about lateral torsional buckling. If it is more than 0.4, then only you have to worry about the lateral torsional buckling itself. So this, and now our code also, so for laterally unsupported beams, how to calculate the bending capacity. So the expression is same as, how we do for a column. So this is for the compression member, you remember. So AE into FDC. So area into FDC design stress will be there, and design compressive stress we write as reduction factor we take, and you remember these formulas for the compression member. So this slide is from the compression member only. Okay. So similar fashion, say here also we do. So there it was area, but since it is a beam, say we want section modulus. Okay. So Z into FBD. So this is a bending stress. And beta anyway is nothing but your shape factor kind of thing. Now this is design bending stresses, say. So you obtain from this expression, so XLT, so your yielding strength, then partial safety factor. So this is nothing but your reduction factor, same as for the compression members. Okay. So the reduction factor and the expressions, all the things have been borrowed from the Euro code, the formula. Okay. So the bending stress reduction factor, say. So the same expression, and then, this phi LT, you remember. So this was expression. So this formula looks same as compression member. So this formula comes from which formula is this one? Euler's formula, or which formula is used for compression members in IS code or in the Euro code, and it is based on which principle? Yeah, you remember in compression members I told you the whole who derived that formula? Now this formula came from who? What assumptions for columns? these compression members, we had this formula, right? This is for the compression member phi. This is whose formula? Euler's formula, or what is other formula? Perry-Robertson formula. Excellent. Okay. So Perry-Robertson formula means the derivation, how he has derived this formula. Of course, some empirical things are added. That is a different issue. But the basic philosophy is the column. He assumes the column is initially
imperfect.
Some small, the bent is there, and then he derived. So same concept is used for lateral torsional buckling also. Okay. So in compression member, so this alpha we had actually. Okay, similar to column. So this alpha was the imperfection factor. If you remember, right, in the compression member we have said. So now the imperfection factor we have given. So for beams also we use the imperfection factor. But in columns, how many imperfection factors was there, or how many column curves they have given in our IS code? 4. Now coming to the beams, in our code has taken only 2 actually. Okay, so 2 buckling curves are there for bending, for this buckling curve. But if you see Eurocode, so Eurocode takes 4 curves they use actually. Okay, for even lateral torsion buckling. But our IS code uses only 2 curves. That is for rolled section, then for the welding section. So this is the imperfection factor. So the imperfection factor for welding section is very high. For rolled section, it is low. You followed, because when you do the welding, say the residual stresses, non-uniform cooling and all other problems will be there. So the imperfections are more for welded rather than for the rolled section. Okay, and so now you find out the non-dimensional slenderness ratio, Fy by FCRB, or that MP by that MCR, that expression. So this is a critical bending moment expression given in our the IS code. It has been from the Eurocode only, and this formula comes from analytical derivation only. So the same derivation, whatever we did, right? So the same concepts comes, and some small here and there, we add. So this is a critical bending moment. So now Iy is a moment of inertia of minor axis, warping constant. So it automatically for I sections, say the code gives all kinds of the formulas, and our IS code also so the everything is in. So these are formulas. So this formula can be used to find out the critical bending moment itself. So these are the buckling curves, like LTB curves, I should say. Okay, for beams. So for columns we had 4. Now for beams we have 2, rolled section, welded section. Now for a given slenderness ratio, say which is more strong, rolled or welded? So which has more strength, rolled or welding beam? See the reduction factor, is more for which one? Rolled or welded for a given slenderness ratio? See for the welded section, what is the reduction factor? See if you take this slenderness ratio. So for same slenderness ratio, say for rolled section, what's the reduction factor? Somewhere around 0.62 or 0.63 you get. Now for welded beam, say it is some 0.5 or something. So which beam will carry more strength, rolled or welded? The weld beam will carry more load. See the reduction factor for weld beam is 0.5. This is 0.62. Okay. So if you see this equation, say, where is that welding? This one, psi LT. Now what happens? Psi LT will come in FBD. So your MD will be beta B ZP into your reduction factor will come here. Now for welded beam, what was the value? So for the welding, let us say 0.5 we have got. For the rolled section, some 0.62. Now which beam will carry more load now? More bending moment. Welding or rolled section?
Rolled.
Rolled one will carry more things. So welding one will carry less this one. So 2 curves, why these 2 curves comes from this alpha, that is a 0.21 and then 0.49. Okay, that is how the code says. Why welding beam will carry less strength than rolled section? The reason given is, welding, right? There may be a lot of imperfections, last time we have seen during welding failures and others also. So that's why the welded beams things are decreased actually compared to the rolled cross section. Okay, so the same thing. So our equation, the same critical bending moment, for double asymmetric I sections, say you can find out warping, girping. You can substitute everything in one go. So easy formula can be given, like you say EIY, HF. It is very easy to calculate. Or the extreme fiber, you can also write in terms of the FCRB. That is the fiber compressive stress, on the topmost. That is, because when you're having a beam, say the topmost stress will be in the extreme fiber. That is the topmost fiber. That this is a stress actually, FCRB say. So this is given by this expression. All are one above, you followed it. You can find out from the simple bending formula also, that M is equal to M by I, E by that Y is there, right? You can find out the stress also. So now our code, so this is a buckling stress also. Okay, so you can find out, from this expressions itself. Now what our code does is, the formulas also the code gives. Another thing what the code gives is like this. Okay, so they give some type of so if you see our IS 800, say, okay, so if you open IS 800, yes, this is IS 800. So if you go to this, where is that one? Design of section 8. Okay, so the code gives like, so this is a design bending stress. Now our code, what it does is, so this is a buckling, critical buckling, whatever the code gives like this. And the code, what it says is they give formulas for FCRB and MCR also. Now you can use these formulas and you can calculate the critical bending one. But the what code says is, if you give so many substitutions, the people may do a lot of mistakes. So here also they will give you simple design charts actually. Okay, so the design chart is like this. So this FBD, so there is a two charts they give you actual. Okay, so FY is here, that is a yield strength of the material. Then we have this slenderness ratio. Okay, that is LT by R. So we have this LT by R or whatever this slenderness ratio you can find out. So this charts say you can calculate FCR directly from this table also. So the yield strength of steel. Say right now all our problems we are using 250. So now 250 you go, say you find out the slenderness ratio of your beam, say that is L by R or whatever. So substitute here. So you pick up the corresponding value for the FCR B itself. Okay, so they gave you two charts. One is for rolled beam, other one is for the welded beam. See here, this is a 0.21 and this is for 0.49, that is for the welded beam, rolled beam actually. And of course the welded beam values will be lower than the rolled beam. See here, like you see 145 for 600, say 145.5, for 600, say it will be 161.8. So to two curves automatically the code gives. Then that so the code also gives you one more thing, is the critical stresses you can find out. Oh, sorry, I think I made this is FCRB. The table 14 is there, and this is you followed, right? FBD. So this one you have to use. I'm sorry. Now, so this FCRB says, so this is a table you have to use to find out FCRB. I'm sorry. Okay. So slenderness ratio is KL by R is this expression, and H by T of F say. So based on this expression, you can find out FCR, the B from this chart. Now once FCRB is known, say, so here this is FCRB and this is yield stress, you can directly find out FBD, that is a design the bending stress for the beam itself. So the charts have been automatically given. So no need to use this formulas. So directly you can use those charts also. So there are two charts are there. One chart is for FCRB, another chart is for the FBD. So two charts. The first chart gives you FBD. So FBD depends on alpha, LT and others. So FCRB say, so this depends only on two things, that is LT by R, that is this the slenderness ratio of this itself, and H by TF say. So the automatically the charts have been given up. So if you can use the charts directly, or you can use this formulas also. Okay, and then effective length also for simply the code also gives this one, like similar for a column. Here the problem is because it is a lateral torsional buckling, say. Okay, so because it is a LTB issue, so you will be having two slenderness ratios basically. So if you want to be strict, say, One slenderness ratio should be linked to bending of the beam. That is ordinary, the lateral bending, that buckling due to bending. Then you can have another slenderness ratio which is related to torsion, warping, and others also. So two things can be given up actually. So, but of course our code, takes both of them same, and they will give you, one value itself. Okay. So now these are the so this is for simply supportedly. So my beam is like this. So there are two restraints have been given. One is for the torsion, other one is for the warping. Now the torsional restraint, if it is a fully strained, both flanges fully restrained, say. So loading conditions also two are there. So this is a slenderness ratio is 0.7. For destabilizing case, it is 0.85. What do you mean by destabilizing a normal? No. What is the meaning of this one? Now, what do you mean by normal or destabilizing load? What is the meaning of destabilizing load? Just now I showed you, right? So your LTB depends on what?
Point of application of load.
Point of application. So destabilizing means where you are applying the load.
Top flange.
Destabilizing means the top flange. Okay. So our IS code, what it says is this they consider as a destabilizing. Okay. Now this is so these two are considered as normal. So they don't give 3, they give only 2. So this one say it is under 1. This is the destabilizing case actually. So for destabilizing case, the code gives the very high you followed it. The slenderness ratio is increased 0.85 times L actual. Now fully restrained, then compression flange fully restrained, say then we have 0.75 L, 0.9 L, like that. You see you will have a clear cut guidelines actually. Okay, so torsional restraint, warping restraint. Now this is for a simply supported beam. So if you see our IS 800, so they will give you all these the restraints also. Now so you can have, this is the effective length. You can see here this table only I just cut paste in our slides also. Then similarly say for this is the old one, but if you see the new ones, they are sorry, this one, there is another table 16. So you can find out the effective length for a cantilever, say for length L. So these are the supports, like we said, support what is the condition, then at the top what is the condition. Now for normal case, then destabilizing case, so they will give you all these the effective length of your this beams also. Okay, to find out this lateral torsional buckling. So all these things are given in our code book. Okay. So so from this you can find out L by R or the effective length of this one. So once L by R is there, say, so now you can find out, you can substitute in these equations, and then you can calculate FCRB, MCR, and finally say you can calculate this FBD, that is a design bending compressive stress. So you can substitute, and then you can calculate all these numbers itself. So you can use these formulas, or if you don't want to use the formulas, say for simplicity you can use this tables which I already showed you. Okay. So first thing is you have to use a table this 15, this table has to be used, sorry, table 14. So you find out slenderness ratio of the beam, the h by thickness of the flange. So from this you select FCRB. Once you know FCRB, say now come back to this table. So if it is a welded beam, use this one. If it is a slender the rolled section, use this table. So from this table, say I know yield strength, that is a 250. Then the FCRB I will calculate from our table 14. So based on these two, you can directly get the design bending stress also, if you are not interested in using all those this tables itself. Okay. So these how you see you have to do this LTB now. So we will solve one problems also. Okay. So this is how the table also comes here. Now in practice, say now suppose because LTB is highly complicated and so many issues are there, what one does is that you can avoid lateral torsional buckling. Now, so if you want to avoid lateral torsional buckling, what you have to do? See here what they have done. Now, what is that they have done? Now, what is that they have done here? Now this beam, whether it will lateral torsion buckling can happen for this beam I section. See, lateral torsion bucklings in the compression side or the tension side? It happens in the compression side. Okay, so now what he has done here? No. Now here what they have done in the concrete. So this top flange, where it is a top flange is now. So where the top flange is located, so you can have like concrete slab or whatever is there, say you can have a I section below itself. Okay, but what they have done essentially here now. So this is a top flange, say they have embedded this inside the concrete slab itself. So now what happens, whether here also or this way also, like you see your I-beam is there, say, so there are some angle section, you see they have dumped welded here and they have dumped this into the concreting this one. Now what happens to this one? So all the load is acting like this. Yeah, so whether this beam will lateral torsion buckling can happen.
No, sir.
Yeah, why?
Because the compression region is hold tight. It is restrained.
It is restrained. So now this is also one way, you weld it actually basically. So if you weld it, say if you leave it free, then lateral torsion buckling. Otherwise, you do like this, you weld it here, or some struts they use, or they do this type of they tie this one, or the this portion, say compression region, they will join it to some other beam such that it cannot lateral torsion buckling cannot happen. So they use this type of restraints also. So when you have done like this, no need to worry about LTB at all, so you can happily follow it. You can design this as an ordinary, the thing itself. So this is how people do it in practice to avoid the lateral support. What they have done here, you can see. So these are all the I sections. 4 I sections are there. And now so whether this beam can lateral torsion buckling is whether it is a possible. See, like for example, this beam or this beam or this end beam or whatever, say whether lateral torsion buckling is possible?
No, sir.
Why? No, where they have put the bracing,
So it is braced.
No, it is braced, but where braces where they have to be, that is also very important. See, suppose if the load is like this, say what happens, the top one will be compression, bottom will be tension. To avoid LTB, say which portion you have to brace?
Near the flange.
Near the flange, not the top or bottom. Of course, the here you can see the compression portion. Say you followed, right? You have to be very careful about the compression portion. So the compressive portion, if you can hold it, then you follow, right? No need to worry about lateral torsional buckling also. But in some practice, in sometimes it may not be possible. So you have to do this lateral torsional buckling also. So this is also some techniques we use actually. Okay, to restrain the beam to avoid lateral torsional buckling in practice. So now, this we have discussed excessive bending, then lateral torsion we have seen. The last one, the mode is, the local failures we say that small, the things are there, like you see the web buckling or something like that also. So first one is the shear buckling basically. So if I have a beam, say, the shear buckling, of course, for ordinary beams, it is not so important. They will never buckle in shear, but this becomes very important for plate girders. We will see later. Okay, the shear buckling. So okay, so this we will see later on. So the criteria is D by TW. So if it is less than more than 67 times epsilon, then you have that there is a chance of shear buckling. Suppose if D by T is depth to thickness of the web actually. If it is more than this one, only shear buckling can happen. If it is less than 67 times epsilon, say then no need to worry about shear buckling at all actually. Okay, so beams it is not so important, but we will discuss this when it comes to the plate girders, the shear buckling and others also. That means the web itself buckles. Okay, in as a plate basically. Because the as a plate kind of thing, and the shear buckling, the diagonal buckling, you see it happens when you are having this plate girder or whatever this beam. Okay, so when the depth is very large, say in a plate girder, then this chance is possible actually. Okay, or it is like this actually. If you want to see this one, I've shown you the plate girder. Yes, here. So this is a plate girder. So the buckling will be like this. Okay, so this will be the buckling modes. the shear buckling we say. So the whole web, that is, it acts as a plate, and then you will see this shear buckling. So that is what the first thing. But anyway, in beams it is not so important. Most of the cases, it will be less than 67, so it's not so important here. So that is the first thing which you have to check actually. Then other thing is so you have to do this, you followed, right? So the next one what to do is this web buckling as a column. So this is a very important thing. You have to check under concentrated loads. You followed. So generally the web buckles, shear buckling is different. OK, so generally when you have applied a concentrated load, say, so here because the load is concentrated at a point, what happens is, you see, below this portion there is a chance of the web may buckle, something like this itself. And the concentrated loads are the most the dangerous things in in our mechanics. What is the what is the reason? See, suppose if I have a beam, say, okay, simply supported beam or whatever, subjected to concentrated load, say. Now this section of the beam, the bending stress, all of it will vary like this. Okay, then shear stress will be something like this. Okay, so all of you have already studied in your mechanics of materials. But just below the concentrated load, say, what will be the stress distribution? This is valid, whatever you have studied in your mechanics of materials. Below the load or below the load itself. So how you remember how the stresses will be located, how the stress distribution will be, your mechanics of material, that simple bending formula, that is all valid below the load. Yeah, so can anybody tell me, like, if you have a beam, say, okay, so this is my cross section of the beam. So here I have a concentrated load. How the stress distribution will be below? So whether it will be like this or it will be, different, just below the load. So your mechanics, whatever you have studied, so that is not, the valid actual. Okay, so that assumptions, all those collapses below the load. Generally, if you try to experiments also, we can do from advanced structural mechanics. Okay, there we derive these derivations. What happens is the stress distribution will be, like this. Followed. So the stress distribution, it is something like this. So generally below the concentrated loads, say, you will see these type of the radial stresses also, sigma RR. You have to go to cylindrical coordinate system. Okay, so sigma RR, the stress distribution will be entirely different. So whatever you studied in mechanics, they are no more, they are not valid actual. They are valid as long as you are far away from the force. Like here you can use, but not under the load. Not only at the load, even at the support also, because at the support also you will have a resistance, right? That is also a concentrated kind of thing. So here with the depth, say, the stresses will not vary linearly, or shear will vary, that parabolic kind of thing. So that is not valid. So you will have a very complicated, the stress distribution, will happens essentially below the concentrated loads. So so this will create a lot of other problems itself. So generally in our steel, say, so some empirical formulas have been given. So what they say is, if this is a concentrated load, okay, so that thing is so the stress distributions will be followed like this. So what happens is, this region you have to take, that is a diagonal, basically whatever you have this one, say. So this is the most important thing for our the analysis. So okay, so here, so this portion, basically whatever you can take here, that is at the diagonal, because at the diagonal the shear stress will be maximum. So this portion, say, so there is, so if this portion, if it is less than the Euler buckling or whatever, then it will not buckle. But if it is more than that, say, so then there is a chance of the web buckling. So this is a 45 degrees angle we take. Okay, that is basically, right, when it is in a pure shear, say. So what happens when you rotate by 45 degrees? See, pure shear case, Mohr circle, what happens when it is if you rotate by 45 degrees? Now, what happens when it is a pure shear and Mohr circle? What happens for this type of case? Now, if you rotate by 45 degrees plane, say, what happens? What will be the stresses?
It will become principal plane.
No, it will become principal. One will be compression, other one will be tension. And which one will buckle? Tension or compression?
Compression.
Now, compression one may buckle. That's why this 45 degrees angle comes, and then this area say B1. So if it is under the support, so you have to take the width as B1 plus N1. Suppose if it is under the load, so the width has to be taken as B1 plus 2N1. So this is how the formula is given in the code. Okay, so B times thickness of the web multiplied by F DC will be there, and if it is under the load, it will be B1 plus 2N1. If it is under the supports, it will be simply B1 plus N1 itself. So this has to be done, and then to find out the FDC, that is a stresses say. So now it will be, because it is a buckling, you have to use your column buckling curves. Okay, so you have to use those column buckling curves. So there also we have A, B, C, D and all other things, but the guideline here is you should use, I think, C type curve or whatever, so the code clearly mentions that where it is, I guess. So the this one, so the code clearly gives you, and then the slenderness ratio has to be estimated. So the web, so this is a web is buckling here. Okay, so the end conditions. Okay, so how the web, how it is connected to the flanges, the restraints are here. So generally it will be fixed only, but if it is restrained against lateral deflection rotation, say, so then it is a fixed means half times D, but 0.7 times is not against rotation, say. So you have 2/3. So there are some guidelines has been given, and D is the depth of the web. So you can find out from these, H minus H is the total depth of the beam minus 2 times its flange, the thicknesses, and then the root actually, which is given in the steel tables also. So that you have to find out, and then so you have to use this buckling curve C, the column buckling curve C, say. So you find out the slenderness ratio of the web from the curves. You can get this this buckling FDC, that is a stress also. So now so this is just a thing like the slenderness ratio, how to compute. So generally here, because we are doing this 45 degrees, so if the depth is D, say, okay, so this will be D1 times root 2 because it is a shear kind of thing. And if it is a fixed case, say, so it's a slenderness ratio will be divided by 2, so D by root 2 kind of thing. And then the radius of gyration for the web, so that is BH cube by 12, that is BT cube by 12 you have, and then the moment of inertia, and the radius of gyration is comes from this one. And if you substitute L by R, that is a slenderness ratio approximately, you see, for the web, say 2.45 times D by T itself. So you find out the slenderness ratio, and then you use a buckling curve C from this one, and then you pick up your corresponding FDC value, and then you substitute here, and then if under the load B1 plus 2N1, if it is under the support B1 plus N1 itself. So this is how we try to do check for the web buckling, and this should be less than the shear force. Okay, so this should be less than the shear force which is acting on the beam. Then your beam is safe. Otherwise, it is going to buckle actually. Okay. Now another most important thing is web crippling also. So these also it is widely observed. Are mostly webs generally fail due to crippling. So crippling means you can see near this junction, say, where this also happens where you are applying the loads, near the concentrated loads, and then the supports, say. So this problem comes into picture actually. So web, the small portion, you will see this type of crippling kind of thing. So this also the code gives, as already I told you, right, for concentrated loads, it is a very difficult, because the stress distributions are not like what you have studied in mechanics. You have to do advanced structural mechanics, that plane sections you have to throw, and you have to use an original derivation, say, then only things will be valid. I told you, right? So this will be the stress distributions will be like this actually. Okay, so radial stresses and other things comes into picture here. So it is like your geotech, you would have studied, I think, if there is a concentrated load, say, in geotech, we try to estimate the soil capacity and others, so that derivation has to be used here also. So here also the code gives, because web crippling is only happening at the junction between the flange and the web, so the small portion, so the code gives the same formula whatever you used for buckling, that is perfectly fine. Instead of 45 degrees, say, we take the slope is 1:2.5. Under the load B1 plus 2N2, under the support simply B1 plus N2. So these are the support itself. So the same and here we don't take at the this the middle portion, that is that buckling, the shear stress or whatever. So here we take only near this small below the load itself. So this is a formula, same formula. So area has to be estimated. So B1 times thickness is 1, and B1 is B2 plus 2N1 under concentrated load. Otherwise it is B plus N1. It's so substitute here. You will get your this web crippling also. And the criteria is this also should be less than the shear force. So that means you see your beam is perfectly safe for web crippling itself. Okay, so and this is most important thing. Both of them look similar, that is web buckling and the web crippling. So web buckling happens at the this one center portion because the shear B is maximum there, but web crippling, so it happens only this small portion between the flange and then you see the web, and the formulas are all same. Only that thing is about web buckling, say you have to use the column buckling curves or whatever we studied previously. Okay, so so this is how you see the things goes away in the design. So finally say, so these are the, I think already I have shown you these slides. Now web buckling we have seen. So now this is a flow chart actually. How do we proceed the design? Okay, so how to do the design? So the starting, so you find out the length, loads, you calculate the bending moment diagram, and then the shear force diagrams you have to calculate, and then you have to find out, you have to select some trial sections like ISMB from the steel tables, and then you have to do the section classification. Very the important thing. Now after section classification, plastic, semi-compact or compact, then this question has to be asked whether the beam is laterally unsupported or you have put some restraints. If it is yes, then lateral torsional buckling will come. Then MCR, lambda and all those things comes into picture. Suppose if it is no, say, then you calculate from the previous equation. And here also we have two cases, low shear, high shear actually. So low shear case, that formula, high shear case, other formula has to be done. Now, so you find out the MD. So if MD is more than MU, say that is a design capacity is more than MU. So if it is yes, say, then you calculate the shear capacity, that is a VD. Of course, you would have already calculated here. So you calculate the shear capacity, and then if it is VD is VU, say, then this is also fine. Then you have to do for web bearing and the web buckling. So web bearing is anyway the crippling only. So these two has to be checked, and the last one is the serviceability, that is the deflection. So you find out the maximum deflection and it should be less than some L by 300, something like that. The code clearly says. So then that means your design is perfectly safe. If it is if one step fails also, say, then you have to go back and you have to change your trial section. So this is the overall flow chart of designing the beams itself. Okay, so I will stop here. Next class I will tell you the detailed steps, and then we will solve some 1 or 2 problems in tomorrow's class. Okay. So if you have any questions, you can ask.